It's for an amendment to the Constitution here in Oregon, just as an FYI. So, what I wanted to do is give you a bit of an overview of the arc of this book, Threshold, that I've written over the last couple of years and just was published this week. The essence of it is that we are at now this point in time where we stand at a series of thresholds. There is an environmental catastrophe happening around us that, some not insignificant consequence that, according to James Hansen anyway, of NASA, the scientist who's done some of the most in-depth and well-published and well-peer-reviewed work in this field, suggests that if we can't get, we're right now I think around 385 parts per billion parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. If we can't get back down below 350 parts per million, there's a very real chance within 200 to 300 years this planet will be uninhabitable for human life. That's how serious that problem, that threshold is. Then there's the threshold. There are the other two thresholds that are functionally, practically, or in reality, driving that environmental threshold. And one is the threshold of democracy, the failure of democracy, shall we say, the failure of markets, the failure of economics. This notion that free market economics driving democracy is somehow a good thing. Laissez-faire economics, laissez-faire capitalism. If you just let the markets take care of themselves, everything will work out just fine. And it's as crazy, frankly, as saying, if we just play a football game with no sidelines, no goalposts, and no yard lines, and no downs, and no referees, that wouldn't that be a great game? Let's have an unregulated, free football game. And no, it would be a mess. And that's what we have right now in our economic markets. And then finally, the third is the explosion of human population. And this is one that is, very definitely something we all need to be paying attention to. And in fact, one of the ones arguably is driving it too, although I see all three of these as absolutely interconnected, as interpenetrating each other. But the reality of human population is that for the vast majority of human history, the first fully modern humans that we have in the fossil record are 165 to 175,000 years old from Eastern Africa. And from that point in time up until about 10,000 years ago, humans traveled all over the world. The world population of the human race pretty much averaged around 25 to 40 million people. That's the guess from what people can see. Not just in the fossil record, but from the impact that humans had, which is quite measurable on local flora and fauna, local animals and plants. And then, 10,000 years ago, more or less, as the agricultural revolution really took steam in the last ice age, population started to grow, and population started to grow quite significantly. And the story that we tell ourselves is that the entire population, the entire human race began to grow. And in just a moment, I'll get back to that, because that's not an accurate story. But nonetheless, the human population began to grow to the point where, by the time Jesus was walking around the planet 2,000 years ago, there were about 250 million people, 250 million people on planet Earth. Now, that's less than the population of the United States, but it's not an insignificant number of people, and we had reached every continent, except Antarctica. By 1,000 years ago, by the year 1000, or let's say 1215, when the Magna Carta was signed by King John Runnymede, the population of the planet was around 500 million, 500 million people. So we see this long arc, 165,000 years, it takes us up to 10,000 years ago, and then it starts climbing up until around 1,000 years ago, we're at 500,000. And then in the year 1800, we hit our first 1 billion people. So all of human history, all the way up to here, to 1 billion people in 1800. The year that Thomas Jefferson became president, 1 billion people. The next billion didn't take 165,000 years. The next billion took only Franklin Roosevelt became president, there were only 2 billion people on the planet. Just slightly more. Our 3rd billion people didn't take 130 years, it only took 30 years. 1960, when John Kennedy was sworn in as president, we hit our 3rd billion. It's an amazing thing, you know, if half of all the people on the planet vanished tomorrow, that the population would still be greater than it was the day Kennedy was sworn into office. If 2/3 of the population of the planet vanished, would the population be still be greater than Roosevelt was sworn into office? Certainly bigger than when Teddy was brought in. So anyhow, in 1960, 3 billion people, the next billion people didn't even take 30 years, it only took 14 years, 1974, the 4th billion. The 5th billion only took 13 years, 1987, and the 6th billion took only 11 years, 1999, and we are now aggressively working on our 7th billion. Although our death rate has started to go up in rather startling ways, nonetheless, population is exploding. So the question, you know, there's a whole variety of questions that come out of this, like what is driving these things, and what can we do about them? How do we fix these things? How do we bring this about? I mean, we're half our topsoil is gone. 80% of the fish in the oceans are gone. A third of humans have no access to safe water. Over 1 billion people right now, more than the planet's population in the year 1800, more than 1 people are infected with the most rapidly transmitting contagious disease in the world, tuberculosis, at this moment. And it's growing. So what do we do? And how do we do it? And how do we get out of this? What do we learn from these things? A year ago March, my son Dustin and I, and a couple of talk show hosts, Rusty Humphreys and Jack Rice and Ellen Radner, went to Darfur. In fact, Ellen put the thing together. Ellen, who's on our show regularly, we talk radio news, she put this whole thing together. She's a real activist. She's built a community center down in near New Orleans after the Great Hurricane and all this. She's extraordinary. And when I went into the clinic, it was actually a clinic here in town for tropical diseases. You know, you've got to get certain shots. You have to at least get yellow fever before they'll even let you into South Sudan. And so I went in and I said, you know, well, what are the diseases there that I should be concerned with? And this is just an excerpt from the book. This is what I wrote about. Ebola was first discovered here. It was in South Sudan, the Darfur region. And there's Borrelia ulcer, an incurable flesh-eating disease caused by a bacteria that is related to leprosy. I actually saw a case of this about 10-year-old girl with a hole about that big, about that wide, about that deep, and her leg right down the bone. 80% of the world's cases of guinea worm disease are here in southern Sudan. Hang on just a second. So it's easier. Very good. The worm's microscopic eggs make their way into the guts of tiny, almost invisible sand fleas who themselves infest food and water. About 3 months after an infected flea is ingested, and these things